Everybody can see the slides. Okay.
Yes, Dr. Panda.
Okay. So good morning again. I am DK Panda from the Ohio State University, leading the MRPIS2 project. So in this presentation, I'll be trying to provide you like the latest status and then the future roadmap. So we are in an exciting phase, as many of you know. This June 20th, 2020, the number one system is now 415 petaflops, the Fugaku in Japan with 7.3 million cores. And of course, the community is waiting for the exaflop system to arrive. There has been a lot of discussions going on. Hopefully in next year, we'll be seeing an exaflop system. So when you are trying to think of these kind of multi-petaflop and exaflop systems, how do you design runtimes supporting the different programming models? So here might be for the scientific computings, you can be using like an MPI or PGAS, CUDA. Big data stuff, you can be using like Hadoop, Spark, the DL frameworks like TensorFlow and Python. So that is kind of the heart of the programming models. Then we have a lot of these different technologies coming up. It has been there for many years. Technology is multi-core, meaning for architectures and the accelerators. So I call this like a supply side, and this is the intermediate one, and we have the demand where we need to deliver the best performance and scalability for applications, both HPC and DL. And typically these applications or applications kernels get linked with some middleware, and then we need to bridge this gap, and this is where the communication library or runtime sits in. Of course, you can do this design in a layered manner, or you can also do a co-designing across the layers to get the best performance, scalability, and the resilience. So this is the kind of the goal in my group. We have been working almost now for the last 30 years. And around 20 years back, we started this project, like how do we design MPI library? And of course, over the years, it has been also people have been focusing on PGAS. So now we call it like a MPI plus X at exascale. So this is kind of a list, a wish list, where you need to deliver like a scalability for million to billion processors. You have to deliver best performance for collective communication. As the number of cores per node are increasing, like the latest AMD architecture, if you see, we have around 128 cores per node with the dual sockets, and it will keep on increasing. So you need to balance the intra-node and inter-node communication. You need to do efficient multi-threading, integrated support for accelerators, fault tolerance, QoS, hybrid programming models, virtualization, and energy awareness. So these are all the kind of the research challenges the community has been working, including also in our group. So that led us to this MHAPIS project. And many of you are familiar with this. We in fact started this work almost the day one of InfiniBand in 2000. It has been 20 years back. Prior to InfiniBand, we were working on the optimized designs for Mirinet, Quadrix. If some of you remember, those are the older networking technologies. But once InfiniBand came, we were the very first ones to jump in. And in fact, we had the first open source version of MHAPIS library demonstrated at Supercomputing O2. And over the years, of course, we have expanded to all different networking technologies, all different platforms, evolving also with the MPI standard. So currently, it's like we are in the 19 years and counting. And this library is currently being used by more than 3,000 organizations in 89 countries. These are registered organizations. This week, we just from our website, we crossed almost like a 0.8 million downloads. And we have been empowering a lot of top 500 clusters all over the world during the last 15 years. And currently also we are a partner of the 8th ranked TAC Frontera system. And our software also is available with many other vendor stacks like Red Hat, SUSE, OpenHPC, and SPAC. In fact, earlier this week, we made an official release on the SPAC. I'll be talking about that a little bit later. So this just shows a very quick project timeline. We started with the MPI 1 standard. So that's why the project was MHAPIS. So in fact, at that time, if some of you remember, BHAPI was the host level API. That was the main low-level networking interface. So that's how we coined the word from MPICH and BHAPI. So we coined this word MHAPIS. And then we continued on that. We introduced also the issue micro benchmarks because people didn't know how to measure performance of an MPI library. And that is still continuing. Every time we add some new features, we also correspondingly add the OMB. And then once the MPI standard evolved from MPI 1 to MPI 2, we had a different versions called MPIS 2. And then we introduced the PGAS, both hybrid MPI and PGAS with a unified communication runtime that was MPIS 2X. Then the GPUs came in 2014. We worked very closely with NVIDIA to have the GPU Direct RDMA being taken into the MPI library, the CUDA ware MPI. I'll be talking a little bit later. And then Intel also, if some of you remember the KNL, KNC, those came. So we had a specialized version called MPIS 2 Mike. It is still available, but we don't do any development because the Mike architecture is no longer valid. Then, of course, the cloud computing things evolved. So we had a specialized MPIS 2 virtual, virtualized version where you can have multiple VMs per node. But currently, a lot of cloud deployments are going for one VM per node. So the basic MPIS libraries can also work there. And then we also had an energy aware library to cut down on the energy when you are running the MPI library. Then we introduced the InfiniBand network analysis and monitoring. You heard about that yesterday in the tutorial. Tomorrow also you will hear another talk on that. And then we have introduced this new MPIS to Azure for the Azure, Microsoft Azure cloud, and then the AWS cloud. I'll be talking about that a little later. Right. So this just quickly shows like a release time and downloads. As you can see, we are steadily in a very uprising curve, and might be by the end of this this year, we'll be crossing like a 1 million downloads just from our website. But this is the broad architecture. Traditionally, it was designed with HPC, but as you know, people are moving into DL. So we have this combined architecture. So where we take care of the top, MPI, PGAS, and hybrid MPI, MPI PGAS. And through MPI, we have actually enabled a lot of deep learning environments. We just heard from Brian. They're also following a similar manner. I'll be talking about that more details. You just need the basic MPI library for your TensorFlow, TensorFlow, PyTorch, MXNet, all these things to work. You don't need any separate libraries. And then, of course, we support all the different networking technologies. We have been supporting this InfiniBand, IOR, RoCE, OmniPath. We also have the EFA adapter support. And just during the last few months, we are enabling also the Broadcom RoCE V2 adapter. I'll be talking about that. And of course, we support all the different GPUs. In fact, we are working currently with AMDs, and I'll trying to show some numbers with the AMD GPUs. That will be there in our next release. So these are kind of our challenges as a research group. First, we try to come up with better designs, solutions, mechanisms to give you the best performance. And then once we publish these, we have been taking that into a production quality software design, development, and release process. So we carry out very exhaustive unit testing. Hari mentioned yesterday in the MPIS tutorial some of the details, but we do a lot of in-depth benchmarks and application through it. Just in fact, for every commit, we spend about 18,000 core hours. So within the group, we have almost like 200 servers continuously running all the different kinds of tests. So we do not only the functional testing, we do performance regression, tuning, application-based evaluation on large-scale systems. Even when we release like alpha, beta, RC, RC1, they also go through all these above testing. So that's why we encourage a lot of people to even start using our earlier version so that you can actually get migrated to better performance in your environment. So over the years, we have a overview of like a software families. It has evolved because the way the field has evolved over the years. So we have the base version MPIS 2. Then we have this advanced version with a lot of advanced MPI features and support, with also the network analysis and monitoring and MPI PGAS. We have the Azure and AWS. This is the GPU. Currently, it is NVIDIA. Now we'll also be supporting AMD GPUs, both for HPC and deep learning. And we have this energy aware version. We have some different monitoring tools. This is the INAM tool and also the OMP. So in fact, later on, I'll be talking, we are actually trying to unify some of these things, and I'll be talking that towards the end of the talk, so that from the user's perspective, you should be able to just download one library and it should be able to work on all your different heterogeneous platforms. So the latest MPIS 2 side is 234. We are working on 235. We're trying to push the release, but we couldn't do it before the mark, but you will be seeing it in the next few days. It will be coming up. So let me just highlight a few of those features. And with respect to the internode communication, startup, performance engineering with MPIT, and application scalability. So this chart actually shows over the years, we have been publicizing these numbers with all different adapters. So over the years, I don't have the HDR and DDR here. Those are much more older adapters. So the left-hand side is like a half of round trip latency, small message latency. So we are around like a 1 microsecond, and then node to node. And then for large messages, of course, the bandwidth matters. So this is the ConnectX-6 SDR gives the best latency. And then the unidirectional bandwidth, the rate at which we can pump data from one node to the other node. You can see these are like a QDR, FDR, EDR, and omnipath here. And then this is the SDR. So we come very close to like a 25 gigabytes per second. If you multiply by 8, it will be like 100 gigabits per second. And then bidirectional, we come closer to 200 gigabits per second. Again, these are all the details of the platforms we have given. Of course, on your platform, the numbers might change a little bit. And also, every time we make a release, we also put a lot of these performance numbers on our MRPitch webpage. So you please feel free to take a look at it if you are new users. Now, as the system sizes have been increasing, just like as I indicated, the Fugaku system has 7.3 million cores. So think of like, how do you even start an MPI job? So we have been working on this for many years continuously. As the number of cores are increasing, the number of nodes are increasing, we introduce some newer schemes and mechanisms to cut down the startup time. So here you can see this is on a Tank Frontera system. When we started it, here shows between the Intel MPI and our MRPitch 2. So if you see like a 57,000 processes MPI job, we can just like get it started in 4 seconds. We just count like 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,004, and the job is already running. So we have been continuously working on that. So the next phase is actually coming. A lot of, if you have been using MPI libraries, of course, there are a lot of profilers, but many times inside MPI, a lot of things were operating in a black box manner. So the MPI forum introduced in the MPI 3 standard, like something called an MPI tools interface. So we have been extensively working, and we have a lot of like a performance variables and control variables. So through this, you can actually get a lot of information as an end application or even a tool. And you can also use some control variables to change the dynamics of the library. So in fact, today, later on, Professor Samir Sende, with whom we have been working very closely, is the developer of the Tau. So we have done a very tight integration of MRPitch 2 and Tau so that you can actually do performance engineering of your application. So many talks I indicate this is like just like in the field of medicine, we are talking about personalized medicine. Here we are talking about you can actually design a personalized MPI library using this infrastructure so that for any given platform or for any given application, you should be able to get the best performance. The library should be able to tune itself with a lot of additional information. Here it just shows some scalability. We continuously work with a lot of supercomputing centers to make sure that the applications scale very well. These are the like the Stampede 2, as you can see, like a MiniFE, Neuron, Cloverleaf. These have been like over the years, you can see it easily just scales to a very large number of cores and nodes. So the few upcoming features we are working on, this will be available, as I said, in the 2.35. The first one is integration of the SAR V2. Yesterday, we heard from Debinder Buredi from Mellanox/NVIDIA about the SAR V2. So we already have the integration with SAR, that is the V1, but now we have moved to V2. And then we are also trying to support now the Broadcom Rocky V2 adapters. So let me spend some time on this SAR V2. These are very fresh numbers. We are still working with TAC. In fact, tomorrow you will get very updated number. As I am speaking, we are also running a lot of experiments. So this is like an MPI barrier. As we are increasing the number of nodes, going from 60 nodes to 256 nodes. So here you will see like this dotted line is like a 1 ppn, and the dense line is the regular MRPitch 2. What we do the software. So through software, of course, we have a lot of optimizations, but since SAR V2 does a lot of things at the hardware, so now you can see the barrier, you can almost get a very flat curve. And then using 1 ppn, in our software stack, we still optimize for other ppn. So that's what it shows like for a 32 ppn, 56 ppn, how these numbers come out. And the right-hand side is trying to show a speed up, like what is currently available in the software stack versus you enable the the hardware, now you can see sometimes even you get a speed up of like a 15. So that there is a variability here because the software algorithms are also optimized quite a lot. So we can still further optimize, and mostly through the SARP, it is recommended that we only do like we try to do, these are like 2-level algorithms. So we try to have only one leader participating on the SARP. So that's why it is a combination of like an intranode operation and internode operations to get this kind of best performance. So these are like the MPI all reduce 8 bytes. Again, similar kind of things you can see here. Very flat curves. We see like here like a 32 ppn, 56 ppn, and the speed up here goes up to like a factor of like 4 to 5 for 8 bytes, and for large one like a 1 kilobyte, it goes to around a factor of 3. Because here again, this is a fluctuation because some of our algorithms in the MAPIST2X is already optimized for these 2-level layers. So the benefits, what is coming from the SARP, may not be that significant. Okay, but if some libraries they don't have any optimized solutions, it may help them in a bigger manner. But we are trying to exploit the best performance. And tomorrow, John Case from TAC will actually go into much more details on these numbers. So then we have been working with Broadcom. As I indicated, they have the new Rocky V2 adapter. We had a tutorial from them yesterday. So this is the MAPIST2, which is the upcoming version is already running. These are some sample numbers. We get around like a 2.4 microsecond internode latency, and we get very good bandwidth, bidirectional bandwidth, and also the same thing as the intranode. So in fact, there will be a talk today by Hemal Shah and his colleagues from Broadcom. So they will be trying to show more performance numbers. So with this, let me move to MAPIST2X. MAPIST2X is our like advanced version of the library. It has a lot of features like a direct connect, cooperative rendezvous protocol, CMA-based collectives, asynchronous progress, and XPMM-based reduction collectives. So just to show some benefits, so this is like traditionally it is the RC and DC. Those are the RC and UD have been used as the transport protocols. So the direct connect transport actually helps us with the scalability. So we have enabled this in the MAPIST2X. So this is a number taken, we have taken with the EPFL. We have been working with them. This is application Neuron. So as you can see, like up to 4K processes, this is the basic MAPIST2, but now with the MAPIST2X with the DC protocol, significantly you cut it down, the overall execution time. In fact, they have a talk tomorrow about their brain simulation and all, and we'll be seeing some more details, more newer results there. So this is the cooperative rendezvous protocol we introduced in 2018. This was a SC 2018 Best Student Paper Award finalist. So the broad idea is that within the course, if you try to take, or even the basic protocols, many times, you know, like you use a put or a get protocol. So the question is, can they be combined? Can the processes work together to cut down the data transfer time? So that's what we call like a cooperative protocol. This is available in the MAPIST2X. So as you can see, like a Graph 500, QMD, Mini Ghost. Just by turning on that protocol, you get very good performance, like a 19%, 16%. So this is actually the default in our MAPIST2X. So then, with respect to collectives, as the number of cores are increasing, for Node. Many years back, if some of you remember, like a LIMIC, we had a kernel-based solution to improve it. The person who actually worked is Hyunwook Jin. He will actually be giving talk tomorrow. He was a visiting postdoc at that time in my group. So he will be he's working a lot of post-limit things, what you can do. That talk is tomorrow. But over the years, these ideas have gone into the kernel. So in the standard Linux kernel, you get this called CMA, or a cross memory attach. So if you turn it on, and which is by default in most of our code base, you will see you will be able to get very good performance across different message sizes. We also have an asynchronous progress design, because many times what happens is when you are trying to do a large data transfer, the question is, unless you get like these are rendezvous protocols, unless the receiver receives the request and replies back, you don't get the overlap. So we have did this. This was presented in the Euro MPI and successfully in the Parallel Computing Journal. So if you turn on that asynchronous progress for many different applications, you can actually see like to 27%, 33% benefit even for HPL. So these again are available in the MapIS2X. So then for the last few years, we have actually gone one step ahead. We have used XPMEM, that is the next generation, which is like the shared address space based true zero copy operations. So we support that in the MapIS2X, both point-to-point as well as collective. So we have optimized collective algorithms. So here you can see OEC all reduce, OEC reduce, how you can get a factor of like almost 37, 73 improvement. So we strongly suggest people to use MapIS2X with XPMEM. In fact, I'll show some numbers later on, which are coming from the AWS, Azure. And we'll also, yesterday, Jitin from Azure also showed some of those numbers, and he has another talk today. He will also try to show similar numbers. And we have taken the same designs also to the AWS. I'll show some numbers. So with XPMEM, you get very good performance benefit, not only for collectives, but also for end applications. So the three of the upcoming features which are coming is the XPMEM-based data type processing, tag matching, and our neighborhood collective. So just like the XPMEM I showed earlier, you can use the enhanced point-to-point and collectives. You can also do zero copy MPI data types. So here again, you can see some of the numbers, like we have like almost improvement here, 3D stencil, milk, NASFG, a factor of like 5x, 19x, 3x. So this will be available in the upcoming release. We had papers at IPDPS earlier on these. And the tag matching, as many of you know, for many times, like especially for the point-to-point, so the question is, can we offload the processing of point-to-point MPI messages from the host process to the HCA? This will enable zero copy, and it will also provide rendezvous progress offload to the HCA. So we have taken care of this design. So here, if you see like a performance of MPI I scatter V compared to the basic MapIS2 and with the tag matching, you get like up to 1x, 1.8x performance improvement and sustained benefits as system size increases. This is the same non-blocking I all-to-all. We have similar kind of benefits. And in fact, later today, you will be hearing a short presentations from Mamji Baitpur. So he will go into more details here. So then we are also been working on neighborhood collectives. So that is the part of the next MPI standard. It is there, but not many MPI libraries have those designs. So Mahadi here, she's a postdoc here, has been working in this area. We have just a paper accepted for supercomputing 20. So now you can see like these are some of the performance benefits you can see for here. You can see with up to 34x speed up or up to 15% improvement. So she will be again giving a short presentation later today and go into more details later on. So with this, let me move to the cloud platforms. We are, as many of you know, people have been moving to the cloud platforms. We are also trying to make our MapIS libraries available to them. So we have been working both with Azure and AWS. And we just started working also with Oracle Cloud. So that project might be in near future. We'll be able to share some of the numbers. So the MapIS Azure, we have been working very closely with Azure. In fact, earlier we made a release from our website, but now we are working together so that it is actually integrated into the Azure CentOS images. Jitin mentioned about that in the yesterday's talk. Both our basic MapIS2 as well as MapIS2X are available there. So if you have an Azure account, you should be able to directly utilize that. So here there are some numbers I want to show. Recently we have performed with this is the latest Azure HP V2 instance. These are the AMD Rome platforms. Jitin described that yesterday. So here we are comparing some of the intra-node latency between our MapIS2X with XPMEM and the HPCX. So as you can see, we are able to, like, because of the XPMEM, we are able to give you like a 3.7x better performance. Intra-node bandwidth, we can give almost like a 47% better, and the intranode is like a 2.6x better. Internode more or less remains the same because this is the standard InfiniBand. We are both the libraries are trying to utilize this. Now, if you go to the collective, so this is where you start seeing the benefits, and especially for medium and large messages, and those are actually the very sweet spot these days for a lot of deep learning applications. So as you can see here, this is like 120 processes to 960 processes. we are able to give benefits by a factor of 2 to factor of 4. It is for all reduce, and same thing is also for reduce. These are some other applications like we ran. This is on the HC system and HB. So this the HB is the prior AMD, and this is the HC is the Intel platform. So here again, we see like a Radix, as more and more communication takes place, we'll have factor improvement like a 3x improvement and 38% faster. And in fact, there is another talk from Microsoft Azure today afternoon. You will see some more results there. And very recently, we have run this. This is the WRF, which is a very common application running on many systems. And this is the WRF 3.6 with the Conus 12K resolution case. And clearly, you can see like we have scaled up to 960. Here you will see the basic MAP is to scale up to 480, but doesn't scale beyond that because it starts taking more time. Whereas the MAP is to XBMEM is able to continuously reduce the performance. We'll be carrying out more experiments and see whether it performs better for larger processes or not. Similar kind of engagements we have done with Azure, the AWS. So this is the release we made from our website. So this version is already available. You can actually go, and especially as some of you know, AWS doesn't use InfiniBand, it uses the EFA adapter. So we have designed a optimized MHAPIS2X version for that adapter using the scalable reliable datagram or SRD transport protocol. And that version is publicly available. And here if you see some of the performance numbers across libraries. So this is the basic, our MHAPIS2X has a UD support, also SRD support. But as you can see, the SRD support is able to give you better latency, better message rate. So we published this design at the last year's Hot Interconnect, and then we have taken that design and made them available for people to use. So these are some collective performance on 32 nodes, 36 ppn across 3 stacks. This is the Intel MPI, OpenMPI, and then our MHAPIS2X, the latest version. And you can see all reduce. These are the MHAPIS2X is the red line. We lose a little bit on the Bcast. We are trying to optimize it further, but here you can see gather we perform very nice, and scatter also we perform very nice. And these are some of the results. Again, these are some fresh results we have carried out on the AWS platform, and we are comparing the WRF, the same example I indicated earlier. And here you can see again with Intel MPI is able to saturate after 288 processes, but here MHAPIS2X design is able to still go up to 1152 processes. And again, Raghu from AWS will be talking about talking today afternoon, so he may be able to provide some also additional numbers. So as we are working, we'll be trying to make some of our recent versions again available from the MHAPIS2 web page. So as the end users, you should be able to just download, and if you have an AWS account, you should be able to run this. So with this, let me move to the GPU side because there is a lot of excitement over the years. I'll introduce some CUDA-aware MPI, scalable collectives, kernel-based support for data types, and of course the high-performance deep learning. And I think that most of you might be familiar by now with the CUDA-aware MPI concept. In fact, from our group, we introduced this concept in the 2011 at ISC. And the broad idea is that instead of trying to do a CUDA call from the GPU buffer and sending the messages, can you provide an MPI send operation, the sender device, sender buffer, and the receiver buffer, and then automatically the MPI library will be able to take care of that. So with that, you get both high performance, also high productivity. And since the MHAPIS2 GDR 1.8 release, we have been working very closely with the NVIDIA features to make sure that all these CUDA-aware MPI concepts work. And here is the latest number. You might have seen from some other presentations. We also introduced that yesterday. You can actually do device-to-device data transfer over InfiniBand with only 1.85 microseconds. And as I indicated earlier, like host to host is around 1 microsecond. So in another 850 nanoseconds, you are able to transfer the data. You get a reduction in almost without CUDA-aware, you get a benefits of factor of 10, and also the same bandwidth and bidirectional bandwidth. So these are the numbers from NVLink 2 plus Volta. This is like the Summit system, as you can see, like with our latest library, we're able to utilize like internode latency of 0.76 microsecond. This is with GDR copy 2. You get around internode latency of 2.18 microsecond. And within the NVLink 2, we are able to closely saturate. We can actually, intranode bandwidth, we can deliver you almost 65 gigabytes per second. So using those point-to-point, we have done also a lot of optimization in collectives, and these also use the kernel-based collectives. And as you can see, and we optimize for all the message sizes for small, medium, large messages. This is comparing with the Nickel. This is the 2.6 version. As you can see, we can deliver like a factor of 4.7x benefits here and also 2.5x here. Here we tried to take some numbers on the Summit. We went up to 1536 GPUs. Similar story holds good, like we are able to, this is the MAPS2 GDR, the latest release version compared to Nickel 2.6. You can see we can deliver you 1.6x better performance, here 1.7x. And as it scales, we also try to deliver you a similar kind of performance. And these get translated into the application level benefits. This is a Humdi Blue application. This, the higher is better. So as you can see, using the CUDA-aware MPI, you can boost the performance by a factor of 2. We have also done kernel-based operations with data types because a lot of applications use that. So here you can see if you try to do the data type processing in the kernel itself, you don't have to bring it to the host and then perform these operations. So this is the proposed one, which is available in the MAPS2 GDR 234. We presented this at IPC 2019 last year. So as you can see from the Milk, 2D Stencil, Cosmo, you can improve very significantly the execution time. So in fact, using this Cosmo model, we have collaboration ongoing with CSCS and Meteo Suisse. So if you have been in the Switzerland for the last several years, you will be seeing we are able to drive the real world weather forecasting through this MAPS2 GDR library. So then as the field is moving into the machine learning and deep learning domain, some of you might be familiar with this Hoverboard middleware, which came from Uber. So this actually tries to provide support for TensorFlow, PyTorch, and MXNet. So what we have done, we have a project called High Performance DL, High Performance Deep Learning. So we have integrated our both MAPS2X library for CPU-based training and MAPS2 GDR for the GPU-based training. So now, in fact, if you want to run any of your application with TensorFlow, PyTorch, and MXNet, you don't need any other library. You are just good enough to use MAPS2 library and run your applications, and you get very good also performance. So here I'll try to show some numbers. This is like a CPU-based training using the out-of-core problems, because as just like Brian indicated, the message sizes are, the model sizes are becoming very large, data sizes are becoming very large. So how do you handle this kind of out-of-core training? So we have this paper we presented 2 months back at ISC. So now you can see like up to 512, the TAC Frontera, we are able to get almost a speed up of 481. In fact, Arpan Jain will be giving a short presentation later today, and we'll go into more details on it. So these are some of the numbers with TensorFlow using Hoverboard and MAPS2 GDR on the DGX2. Again, on the DGX2, we are comparing with the Nickel support versus our MAPS2 GDR. You can download MAPS2 GDR and run on DGX2 systems. You can actually get better performance compared to the Nickel library, both absolute performance and also better efficiency. Similar story holds good here. This is the numbers from OPRIS Summit. We scaled it to 1536 GPUs, and this is ImageNet 1K. It has 1.2 million images. So as you can see, we are able to deliver up to 0.42 million images per second using 1536 GPUs. And in our experiments, the things were not scaling with Nickel 2.6 beyond 384 GPUs. And now you can basically see with a, here it is a number, like you can actually train the entire ResNet, this ImageNet 1K in just 4.5 minutes kind of. And then we are working also with a lot of applications scientists, and this is an example. We are trying to work on AI-driven digital pathology because the pathology images are very large. And we have this paper accepted for Supercomputing 20. In fact, Arpan Jain will present much more tomorrow. So what these pathologists were trying to do, they were trying to train this. It was taking 32 hours for them to train in one GPU. So it was not practical at all. So we first used scale up using only 4 GPUs on Lassen, like the 4 GPU systems. We were able to reduce to 7.25 hours. And then we scaled out, and now it can be trained in 27 minutes. So it has provided a big change to the pathologist with whom we are working, so that they can actually go and introduce newer models for their training with a much more accuracy. And this kind of information will help, in fact, the machines to learn and help pathologists to reduce the healthcare costs. So we are working along that direction. So then along the GDR side, we have a lot of exciting things coming up. Optimized all-to-all, all-gather, many DL frameworks are trying to utilize these operations, support AMD GPUs, distributed PyTorch, Horobot, and DeepSpeed, on-the-fly message compression, and also Dask and UML. So let me just touch a little bit of these. So this is the next release. We'll have optimized support for all gather and all to all. We already have some support in the GDR 234, but we are trying to take it to the next level. So these are some of the preliminary numbers we have. And again, the AMD GPUs, these are again preliminary numbers. We have our one of the, like the MapIS2 GDR internal version already running with ROCm. So here we are trying to show the MapIS2 GDR number with OpenMPIs, with UCX. So here we get like a one byte is around like a 2.97 microseconds. That's the kind of the latency we are seeing from one node to the other node. And tomorrow, actually, Jahanjeb Hasmi will give more detailed talks on these, and you will see some more numbers. And as the field is moving, not only like Horobot, as many of you know, the DeepSpeed, that is a new framework is coming, the PyTorch distributed. So we have been working very closely with all these DL frameworks to make sure that they run very optimized manner in the modern GPU systems. So here we are trying to show like these are on the Livermore Lassen system, scaling up to 256 300 GPUs, as you can see. Compared to the Nickel version, latest Nickel version, we are able to even deliver even 10,000 images per second faster. So Quentin Anthony will be giving a talk tomorrow. He will go more into this. So then the other direction, what we are working on, can you actually compress data using GPUs before sending it out? Because a lot of applications these days are using large messages. So since the data is being generated from GPU, can we introduce some newer kernels and compress it and before send? So in that way, we can save network bandwidth. And the question is, can we even benefit, because the compression will take some time? So these are some initial results we have. We are working with AWB ODC, which is a seismic simulation. So here, as you can see, with the compression, we have some 2 different compression algorithms. We are able to deliver optimal like a 21 to 37% performance benefits with 64 GPUs. So these are real end application numbers, benefits we can try to show. So this is again in the pipeline, and it will be released in the near future. So then we are also working on the data science applications. As many of you know, there is a Dask environment which is catching up quite a lot. And here the current support is only through UCX, and we are trying to enable it through, we have introduced a new module called MPI for Dask. And to that, we have to actually integration with the MapIS2 GDR. So that will also be available in the few future releases. And as you can see, some of the benchmarks, you can get up to 3.47 or 6.92x better performance. So tomorrow, actually, Dr. Amir Safi from the group will go into more details on this. And then now, not only trying to address these data science applications and DL, we are also trying to look for the machine learning applications. Many of these, like k-means, linear regression, nearest neighbors, truncated SPD, they use a lot of Python-based solutions. So here we have a solutions now, MPI for Pi, and we have done a tight integration with MapIS2 GDR. And that's what the results you can see. Again, compared to Nickel, if you use a MapIS2 GDR library, we are able to deliver you like almost 1.6x improvement. So those are all the things that are being worked out, and we'll be pushing these into the future releases of the MapIS2 GDR. So together with that, I'll skip the INAM because that was discussed yesterday, and we'll also be talked tomorrow. OMB, as you know, has been there since 2004. It is a part of now a lot of procurement. We continue to add support for newer primitives and features. We'll also be adding the ROCm support. The numbers I showed with AMD GPUs actually utilizes that OMB. So we are trying to stabilize that, and very soon it will be available also in the upcoming release. So we also have been, over the years, I've been trying to also put a best practice page. If you go to this website, you will see we take a lot of knowledge from the community and put this information so that if you are running this application, you should be able to utilize the exact parameters and so that you don't waste a lot of time. So we solicit additional contributions. Please feel free to contribute here, and we link all these results with credits to you. And just last week, in fact, this Sunday, some of you would have, who are in our MAPIS mailing list, you would have seen we made our MAPIS2 libraries available through SPAC. So this has not only the basic MAPIS2, also MAPIS2X and GDR. So you should be able to just follow the user guide and then install very easily all these libraries. Now, moving forward, what we are trying to do, we are enabling auto detection of a lot of underlying features with the DLO. Because currently, you know, there is a MOFED version, OFED version, then XPMEM. So we are trying to gradually remove the dependencies compare with respect to these libraries so that it will simplify installation and deployment. One binary can have all the necessary support. For example, it will automatically detect if your underlying system has XPMEM and use the XPMEM version. If it doesn't have, it will not use. So in the next phase, we are trying to unify a lot of these tags, MAPIS2 GDR, MAPIS2 X, MAPIS2 Azure, and AWS. So currently, we just put it as MAPIS2 next year. Currently, some internal versions are already running. Might be by the end of this year or a Q1 of 2021, we'll be trying to release these so that you just need only one library to simplify your installation and deployment. So with this, we are heading into the continuously working towards exascale effort. We are continuously working on some of these additional things, MPI plus tasks, tag matching. I indicated about these, Intel Optane, the Bluefield, Happy. So these are the kind of the support features will be available in our future MAPIS. I also want to indicate, like 2 years back, we have a commercial spin-off to provide like commercial support. So through these, we can actually provide just like any other software library, we can provide commercial support with guaranteed response time. We can work with integrators, installers. So currently we are working, this kind of support is being provided to Lawrence Livermore National Lab and KIST Korea. And also from xScale Solution side, value-added products are being added. So xScale Solution is a Silver ISV member of the Open Power Consortium. So in the last year, Open Power Summit, we introduced 2 packages, xScale HPC and xScale AI. So in fact, tomorrow, Dr. Donglai Dai from xScale Solution will be giving a talk and we'll go into more details. We'll have some new designs working with Bluefield adapters and also deep introspection for your deep learning application. So you will see those kind of newer products coming out from xScale Solutions. So with this, I'd like to thank all our sponsors. And more importantly, these are all the heroes, past, current students and staffs. What I'm presenting here is a work of 20 years. A lot of people have contributed. So these are all my heroes. Without their contributions, will not be able to reach at this stage. But while we are working on all these things, I'm also looking for a lot of people to join my group, since many of you are attending from all different parts of the world. I just want to highlight this. If you would like to join our group, and in few years, your name will be listed in the previous slide, please contact me. So with this, let me stop here. And I believe there were some few questions. I think, are there any questions which are not answered?
Fanda, there is a question in a Slack.
In a Slack? Okay, let me go there.
So is the AWP ODC compression work looking at binary compression, or is it aware of the data type of the actual parameters used by the kernel?
So the thing is, in fact, there will be a talk by Qinghua Zhao tomorrow. I'll suggest you to attend that talk. This is a short presentation. So broadly, it is like the compression has different characteristics, if some of you know. So based on the data type, we have provided some different options. So you can actually try out different options and see what option will work out best for you. Any other questions? Okay, so there a question from Pasa?
We have answered that.
Okay. So there is another